We've all heard the line that sun causes skin cancer and sunscreen prevents it. And so every time you go in the sun, you need to lather up sunscreen all over your body. And while this is a pretty simple line, it misses a lot of the finer details and nuances within sun exposure and the effects it has on the body. In today's video, we're going to break down what actually happens within the body when UV light is exposed to your skin. We're going to talk about the natural repair mechanisms that were built into your body as part of the evolutionary process evolving with the sun. And we're going to talk about what sunscreen is, what sunscreen is not, and we'll also talk about some strategies that you can start to implement into your daily life to make sure that your body has everything it needs in order to handle that sun exposure. Now, before we can address what UV light does to the skin, we've got to identify what UV light even is to begin with. Well, all light is really just wavelengths, right? And so the visible light spectrum is the wavelengths that our eyes are able to identify. Before the visible light spectrum, we've got UV light, and in front of UV light is going to be X-rays. Obviously, we know X-rays can be very damaging, which is why we don't expose ourselves to X-rays all the time. And when we are exposed to X-rays, we've got to use special protection to make sure that we're not going to create a bunch of damage within the body. So the UV light is not as damaging as X-rays. It's a longer wavelength than X-rays, but it's a shorter wavelength than visible light. And UV light goes from 100 to 400 approximately nanometers. Now, there's UVC, UVB, and UVA. UVC is going to be the shortest wavelength from about 100 to 280 or so nanometers. And luckily for us, this is mostly filtered out by the ozone in the atmosphere. If it weren't, this would be the most damaging form of UV light. UVB is going to pick up from about 280 to 320 nanometers, and UVA is going to be about 320 to 400 nanometers. Now, the reason that this is important is because of the difference in the wavelengths of that light, it does penetrate deeper into the skin. So UVB is going to be more of a superficial wavelength of light. It's going to affect more of the epidermis within the skin, which is that outer layer of skin, and the UVB is going to penetrate deeper into the dermal layers of the skin. So the main two wavelengths of light that we're going to be exposed to from sun are going to be UVA and UVB. Now, traditionally, UVB is what gets a really bad rap. UVB is what directly causes DNA damage, which of course is what leads to cancers. So we want to make sure that we're limiting our UV exposure. Now, while UVB wavelength is going to lead to DNA damage and cause cancer, your body was very well adapted to be able to handle UV. And so UVB is also going to stimulate some things called P53, which is going to help cellular regeneration. It's going to help offset or repair the damage that was created by the UVB wavelengths. It's going to help with apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. And this is what doesn't really get talked about a whole lot, is that while UVB does create DNA damage, it also stimulates the types of mechanisms within the cells that we were designed with to actually help to offset the DNA damage. And it's kind of like a seesaw, right? So on one side, we've got DNA damage, and the other side, we've got DNA repair. And so we need to make sure that we're balancing that seesaw. Too much DNA damage, we're going to shift the seesaw this direction, we're going to end up with cancer. If we can balance the seesaw back out, we're actually going to be able to keep up with any of that damage that we're producing, and we can help to actually repair the skin. And the reality is the sun is really just a stressor. Just like exercising creates micro tears within the muscles and damages the muscles, and then our body comes in afterwards and repairs them when we're exercising in a low dose and we're not. If I just sit here and do bicep curls all day long, I'm going to create too many tears within that muscle. I'm going to create bad issues. If I go do 1,000 pull-ups, for someone who's untrained like me, I'm going to end up with rhabdo, which is a severe issue, right? Any stress in excess can cause really bad issues. And the sun is really the same way, and that's the way that we need to think about it. The UVB light in excess can create a lot of really bad issues. UVB light in moderation and time dosage can actually be very hormetic for the body. It can help the body actually heal and repair because of the activation of those repair mechanisms within the DNA or the skin, right? So understanding that's super important. So UVB typically is the enemy. However, UVB is actually not all bad, and that's the really cool thing that I think gets missed a lot. Now, UVA wavelengths of light are going to penetrate deeper into the skin. These ones are going to be kind of the slow progressors of cancer, right? Because they're going to cause indirect DNA damage. These can cause immunosuppression, immunosuppression, and they're also going to create a lot of reactive oxygen species or free radicals. And those free radicals can then go and create a lot of DNA damage. And the immune suppression we get from the Langerhans cells, that is going to prevent your body from being able to survey tumor cells and clear the tumor cells out of the system. So it's really important that we don't have excessive exposure to UVA light either. When we talk about kind of filtration mechanisms within the body, or within, not the body, sorry, within light, just in general, when we're sitting by windows, for example, windows are going to filter out wavelengths from about 100 nanometers to 300 nanometers. So for the most part, the windows are going to be filtering out most of that harmful UVC, if anything comes through, and almost all of the harmful UVB radiation, which is a good thing, right? So sitting behind windows can be very protective against the UV light exposure. Now, understanding that is super important, because if we can understand that your body has these really cool built-in mechanisms to help offset any DNA damage or oxidative stress that's put into the system, we can understand how to time and dose skin exposure to help increase the protective responses. And we can also understand what we need to do from a nutrition and a lifestyle standpoint to make sure that we're offsetting any of that DNA damage or reactive oxygen species that we're creating to help make sure that the sun's not going to have as big of damage. And this is why some people go out in the sun all day long and they don't have any issues, and some people go into the sun for 5 minutes and the world's going to end. And it's also why some people are much more predisposed to getting melanomas or squamous cell carcinomas, or any of those types of skin cancers, just because their body doesn't have the protective responses that they need. The other thing that we have to consider is that the rate and climb in skin cancers really started peaking in the 70s and the 80s. And the other thing that conveniently happened in the 70s and 80s was this is when we kind of started classifying sunscreen by SPF. And so we can't, if we look at the curves, you can't say that sunscreen causes skin cancer, because both of them started increasing with usage and diagnosis at the same time. But also at the same time, if we started increasing the amount of sunscreen that we were using and skin cancer started rising around the same time, we know that we can't just block the UV radiation and expect to have a decrease in skin cancer. There's something else that's driving that mechanism under the surface. And this really comes down to supporting the immune system's ability to function and do what it was supposed to, and support those built-in mechanisms. So we don't need to get into the physiology of the mechanisms that are at play here. We've got these nucleoside excision repair mechanisms. We've got base excision repair mechanisms. These help to offset the damage from UVA and UVB light. We've got P53, which is kind of the guardian of our genome. This can slow down cell replication, which then helps those NERs and BERs be more effective at repairing DNA. And it can also trigger cell apoptosis when we aren't able to fully repair the cells. And so knowing that we have those really cool repair mechanisms tells us that we need to be able to support those repair mechanisms, and at the same time limit sun exposure so we're not overloading them. And this is where sunscreen can play an important role, because it does help us to limit sun exposure, right? But the problem with sunscreen is a lot of the toxins and chemicals that are included in it. The sunscreen aerosols, a lot of the aerosol sprays can be contaminated with benzene, which is a class 1 carcinogen. I believe it's a class 1 carcinogen. At any rate, benzene is a carcinogen. So we need to make sure that we're not inhaling that in any of our aerosol sprays. For the most part, if you're going to apply sunscreen, the lotions are what we need to be applying. Now, a lot of the chemicals that they've used for sunscreens are also now being found out to be endocrine disruptors that can affect hormones and thyroid function. A lot of them in themselves are on the class 1 or class 2A or B carcinogen list. And so we need to be careful of the chemicals that we're using. Best practices for a sunscreen, if you're going to use a lotion-based sunscreen, is to find a sunscreen that's got non-nano zinc oxide. The difference between non-nano zinc oxide or non-nano titanium dioxide within sunscreens is that those are going to form physical barriers that reflect the sun, as opposed to chemical barriers. And anytime I'm putting something on my skin, I'd rather put something that sits on my skin and doesn't get absorbed than a chemical that can get absorbed into my body and start to have effects anywhere else in the body. And just because we haven't identified that this chemical causes this specific issue doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to cause problems in the body. That's why we have these generally recognized as safe chemicals, or GRAS. And my personal philosophy is generally recognized as safe does not mean safe. And the other thing is it's not this one chemical, but it's if I'm putting this chemical on my skin and then this chemical on my skin, that all builds up in the body and we get this total toxic body burden. So I want to try to keep as many of those chemicals off my skin as possible. And the answer to that is if I'm going to be using sunscreen, it's going to be a sunscreen with non-nano zinc oxide or titanium dioxide that I know isn't going to be absorbed into my skin and start to create issues. The other thing that can happen with sunscreen is that the total volume of UV exposure that we get with the sunscreen is going to end up being higher because people are putting sunscreen on, and then because of that, they're staying out in the sun for longer. And so we can still get a total dose of UV light that's higher even if we're wearing sunscreen. So we have to be mindful of that. The best thing that we can do is from just a dietary and a lifestyle standpoint is we need to make sure that we're getting all of the nutrition into our body to help support different aspects of those repair processes. So this is where I'm going to kind of look at my notes here because I want to make sure I'm getting all of these things correctly. So you guys have all the information that you need to help make the best informed decisions. So one of the big nutrient cofactors is we want to make sure that we have all of the nutrients that we need to support those DNA repair enzymes. So the base excision repair enzymes and the nucleotide excision repair proteins. Again, those are going to repair the damage that was created by the UVB and the UVA light. If we're creating a lot of damage, we're going to have more activation of those enzymes. Anytime we're driving a specific pathway, pushing an enzyme pathway, we're going to be burning through the cofactors that are needed to run that pathway, and we're going to have a higher necessity for those. So important cofactors for those BER and NER enzymes is going to be niacinamide, which is niacin, specifically the niacinamide, which is going to be a non-flushing form of niacin. About 500 milligrams of that 2 times a day has actually been shown to decrease risk of melanoma by 23%. Sorry, not melanoma, non-melanoma skin cancers, reduction in risk by 23%. We also want to make sure that we have folate, B12, and B6, specifically the methylated versions of those. That is going to help to support the methylation process, which is heavily involved in DNA synthesis and nucleotide synthesis. We also want to make sure that we have magnesium and zinc. This is going to help with the DNA polymerases and also those repair enzymes that we talked about. Now, when we talk about the UVA light, the UVA light is going to create a lot of ROSs or reactive oxygen species, and the way that we eliminate these is through antioxidants. So we know there's a lot of different antioxidants that we can get from diet. One of the big ones specifically that plays a role with skin cancer prevention is going to be the carotenoids. So things like lycopene, beta-carotene, lutein, you're going to get those from a lot of your colorful vegetables, which is why eating a rainbow is so important. Lycopene, big thing with that is going to be tomatoes. If you have a tomato allergy, obviously you want to stay away from tomatoes and find another source of lycopene. But tomatoes can be very beneficial at helping to increase that lycopene. And research has actually pointed to lycopene as kind of an internal skin or internal sunscreen. So when you're consuming a bunch of lycopene for a long period of time, it helps to actually protect the skin from the inside out. Vitamin C and vitamin E is super important. Vitamin C, taking that with vitamin E is going to be really important because the vitamin C can help to reduce the oxidized vitamin E and regenerate that oxidized vitamin E, which protects the cell membranes and it also protects collagen. We also want to make sure we're getting plenty of polyphenols. So polyphenols are going to be things like green tea extract. So you can drink green tea. You can take a green tea supplement. You can take EGCC, which is a supplement, or not a supplement. Well, it is a supplement. It's a component found within green tea extract, or resveratrol. Resveratrol is the antioxidant being found in red wine. But there's a lot of other ways to get resveratrol without the wine component there. So Japanese knotweed is one of my favorite supplements. It's one of the highest forms of resveratrol. And those are all going to support those antioxidant pathways within the body. Now, we also want to make sure that we're supporting that base and nucleotide excision repair, so those BERs and NERs. We can do that through omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA, so very high levels of EPA. This is going to help to support membrane resilience, and it's going to decrease the UV-induced immunosuppression. So super important, obviously, to get those omega-3s in. And then selenium, which clears out reactive oxygen species and also reduces oxidative DNA lesions, which is one of the big things caused by those UVB wavelengths of light. And then as far as immune support, just in general, we want to make sure that we've got plenty of vitamin D. This is going to help with the kind of immune surveillance within the body. The immune surveillance is super important because when we're forming tumor cells, the body's got these immune cells that are constantly out there wandering around looking for cells that were formed that are not self cells, and it clears those out. So vitamin D is going to really help support natural killer cell function and support those immune surveillance cells. We also want to make sure that sleep and our circadian rhythm is balanced there. DNA repair peaks at night. And if our circadian rhythm's off, if we're not sleeping, we're going to have a really big issue with that DNA repair. So making sure that we're sleeping well is super important. I do have a full sleep guide and a sleep video. So if you want to drop sleep in the comments below, I can send that to you, and you can learn all about some of the strategies that you can do to help support sleep. And then the other thing is going to be avoiding chronic inflammation. And there's 1,000 things in our environment that cause chronic inflammation. When we talked about that kind of rise and peak in the 70s of skin cancer incidents, I think that also kind of trends along with a lot of inflammatory products that were introduced and a lot of lifestyle changes that didn't really support our overall health. So just doing anything that can reduce inflammation can be extremely beneficial. So really the big takeaways I want us to get from this video is that while the sun can cause damage through UVB and UVA rays, your body evolved with the sun and it was designed to function well with the sun. And because of that, it has these built-in repair mechanisms that also help to support the regeneration of DNA and antioxidant capacity. Because of that, we can think of sun exposure kind of like a seesaw. Too much sun exposure over a short period of time is going to cause really big issues and kind of lean us towards this DNA damage and too much oxidative stress. But if we can start to do the right things from lifestyle, we can help to balance that seesaw back out, make sure that we're reducing oxidative damage and supporting all of those excision enzymes that help to repair the DNA damage that we are producing. And while sunscreen can be beneficial, it's important to make sure that we're making good choices with sunscreen and prioritizing sunscreens that are lotions that include non-nano zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. So I hope this helps you feel a little bit more comfortable about the next time you go out into the sun. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, drop those below. I'd love to answer any questions. And as always, I'm always looking for things that you guys want to learn about. So if there are specific health topics that you want more information on, I'd be happy to take your feedback and answer any of those questions at future videos. Take care, guys.